I am joined by Brett Rochkind, from General Atlantic, Managing Director there. Thanks so much, Brett, for joining us today.
Thanks, Leena.
I want to go into your bio a little bit. You lead General Atlantic's Palo Alto office. You're also the co-head of the firm's Internet and Technology Group, and you recently returned from General Atlantic's Hong Kong office, where you focused on opportunities in Asia and China. You have a pretty impressive group of investments here. It's Alibaba, Renren, Lenovo, here in the U.S., Box, Bazaar Voice, in Brazil, Mercado Libre, Grupo Links. I can go on, but I'll let you start talking. What I want to talk about first off is General Atlantic. To me, I know it as a private equity firm, but you also do venture capital as well. And could you explain a little bit about where you guys come in at a company stage when it comes to investing?
Sure. Yeah. No. Thanks for having me, Leena. General Atlantic is a global growth equity firm. So our focus is not really early stage or really even late stage venture capital, or even buyout or private equity. It kind of the range of our minimum check size is 50 million, and we go up to investments as much as 500 million. The stage where we come in is typically when a company has revenue, in some cases, most cases has profits, and we help them to really scale from that beginning, in some cases venture capital or bootstrapping, to really becoming global billion-dollar companies. I think we've been fortunate. You mentioned you look at it very much a team effort, both as a collaborative group across the world, as well as with our entrepreneurs. And so, if I look at, most of our investments have been successful because we help them to scale in their local markets in a really neat way and become billion-dollar companies, and also scale globally from the U.S. market to Europe or China or Asia.
You have a lot of public companies on this list of investments, companies that have gone public, or companies like Box who are, kind of thinking about going public. When do you know that a company or startup has, the potential to be a great public company?
Yeah, so I think it first starts, we look at it as effectively 3 M's. So you have the market size. So we love getting behind entrepreneurs that are going after and have big visions to create large companies going after very large markets. So that's the key. I think, the public market loves growth. It loves getting behind kind of the next Apple, the next Google, the next Facebook. And so very much finding companies and entrepreneurs that have that big vision to create billion-dollar companies is kind of where it starts, and that ultimately allows them to go to the public market. And the second factor is really business model. I think the one thing that we've been really focused on, particularly in our internet investments, is in marketplace businesses. So if you look at companies like Alibaba or Mercado Libre, they very much are in a great market space where they're able to access the large market size of e-commerce, but they're doing it in a model where they don't take inventory, they have very high free cash flow. They effectively can serve fragmented customers, fragmented suppliers, and create a new market in itself. So that those kinds of companies we find perform really nicely in the public market because they have great growth potential. In both cases, they have amazing entrepreneurs, and so those entrepreneurs are really driving the businesses and taking it to new ways that, very much at the time we invested, we didn't imagine they would go to. And so I think, you look at that, and the public market loves growth. And so when you collect all those 3, market, model, and the management team and the entrepreneur, you have this winning combination. We've been fortunate to be involved with a few.
I want to switch to one of our reader questions because, you've, as I explained, you've done a lot of international investing. You've spent time in Asia, Brazil, China, Israel. The question is there a prejudice against startups outside of the Valley? Do you feel that there is? And if not, I'd love to hear why.
Yeah, I'd say definitely not for us.
Yeah.
We love, really taking some of the learnings we see in Silicon Valley and also really learning from entrepreneurs in those markets, China, Brazil. We think they're actually innovating and bringing some really interesting ideas here to the U.S. market. And so at least for us, we find that those markets tend to be opportunities where there may be a little bit less competition, despite, China is a massively competitive market. But there's a chance in certain niches, certain areas, if you're either a first mover or if you create momentum around your either marketplace. We have another investment in a company called SoFun, which is a leading real estate marketplace company in China. And they've really established themselves as the go-to for anyone that's buying real estate in the China market. They're the information service that they go to find out about listings, understand property prices, and so forth. And so very much, I think what you found is great ideas are happening in these markets, whether it be Beijing or Sao Paulo, or we've even made investments last year in Berlin, in Germany. And those are both having the opportunity to go after massive local markets and dominate in those local markets, but then bring some of their ideas here to the Valley and to the United States. There's great companies in China. You look at the history of companies like Tencent. Very much, they took a great model like ICQ that AOL was an owner of, and really perfected it for the Chinese market. They've innovated into other areas, whether it be WeChat and other kinds of messaging applications. And those ideas are coming here to the U.S. And so I think very much that's happening more and more. A lot of the entrepreneurs are coming back here. We've also been fortunate to back a lot of Stanford entrepreneurs.
Right.
So you look at the CEOs of Ren and Mercado Libre. They both were Stanford founding teams, and so we're excited about that. And that also brings back a lot of entrepreneurs to the Valley that bring these great ideas from outside of the Valley. So
I'm curious, what has changed over the past 5 years, I'd say, when it comes to international investing? And have there been any, changes when in the type of companies you're seeing, or in the type of entrepreneurs that you're seeing? Yeah, you're definitely seeing, entrepreneurs that either were educated here, and then that's always kind of been the case, and going abroad. I think you're starting to see some entrepreneurs that really understand their local markets extremely well. And so you have folks, and we've in the case of Mercado Libre, you've got now an ecosystem that's been created in that market where you have other companies that are spawning out of that. We've been fortunate to partner with guys like Marcos and Hernan and Nicholas, and they're helping to seed the ecosystem in those areas. So you're having kind of the Silicon Valley ecosystem, which is still very much the leader on the global scale, but you have in areas like Buenos Aires or Sao Paulo, you have these local ecosystems that are spawning really interesting startups, really interesting growth stage companies that we want to be involved in, and then ultimately I think will be very large public companies in those markets. And so I think you have these pods that are out there, and they're all helping each other in these local communities, and it's been really interesting to see that develop in the last 5 years. I want to switch to another reader question. When is it in a company's best interest not to take venture funding? And this is a broad question because that could be at seed stage, late stage, growth stage, whatever that is. But what's your perspective on that? Yeah, I think it all depends on the entrepreneur, right? So I think we've been fortunate where we sit in the ecosystem is to be able to work with Sequoia and Benchmark and Andreessen and many of the early Series A types of investors. So in some cases, entrepreneurs need assistance, they need help, they need capital at that earlier stage to kind of reduce both the execution risk and also access a much larger opportunity sooner. So those have worked well. What we've done really well as a firm at General Atlantic is backing entrepreneurs that have decided in some cases to delay, bootstrap for many years, create profitable business models. I think there is an element, Silicon Valley is all about kind of go big or go home in many respects. Right. And I think where we've been fortunate is finding in the middle of the country or in these international markets, in some cases, entrepreneurs that have delayed that initial Series A or B funding and really created a business based on cash flow, based on staying within kind of really prioritizing what they're doing in the first few innings of their company, and establishing that base and foundation and platform, and then growing from there. And so that's been an interesting model. We play in both markets, but it really comes down to the entrepreneur and what he or she thinks their abilities are. And where they need assistance, and there's great partners for them. I want to talk a little bit about Box. I think they're a really fascinating enterprise company, growing, fast right now, rumored to be, thinking of an IPO. When did you first find out about the company, and what attracted you to Box? Yeah, so we love Box. We love Aaron. Who doesn't love Aaron? Who doesn't love Aaron? I mean, everyone I see, clearly you got to follow Aaron on Twitter. Right. I mean, he's by far the best. I think even Jack Dorsey has endorsed him. I'll make my endorsement here. So I think, clearly the entrepreneur, both Aaron, Dan, and Dylan, and the team that they've assembled is very strong. We actually started using Box as a customer. So we, 2 years ago, had a small pilot project to look at Box, use it within General Atlantic because, as we talked about, we're highly global, and so in order to collaborate and coordinate across global skills, particularly if we have cross-border deals that we're doing and investments that we're doing, and so we want to have teams. And we started using Box as a customer, and so that was about 2 years or so ago. And then we got to know the team and really, kind of fell in love with the entrepreneurs.
And we think they're going after a massive market. So if you look at enterprise software, we've been investors for about 33 years now in some of the leading companies in that space. Many of them have started, you can look at kind of the transformations of technology from kind of systems management, mainframes,
Right.
client server. We've been looking for investment in kind of the intersection of mobile, cloud, software as a service, going after a very large market opportunity. And Salesforce.com clearly was the early leader in doing that in Salesforce automation. And we think as you look at enterprise, and Workday's doing a great job in ERP and in human capital management, and as you look at across the board at large software markets, enterprise content management, and how people will ultimately both collaborate and work with outside vendors, inside vendors, organize their employees, share their content. We think that will be transformed, and there'll be several winners in that space. But we think Box is in a really good place because they're really innovating, and consumers both love them, the actual business users love them, and IT actually feels very comfortable with the security.
Well, Brett, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me.